Belgium has historically been a battlefield. It connects the Germanic and Gallic halves of Europe and lies in ready access to England. A 19th century treaty was supposed to guarantee its neutrality, but it was ravaged by both world wars. World War I was actually a rematch. In 1870, the Germans, then an alliance led by Prussia, invaded France, destroyed its armies, captured its emperor, and sacked Paris. 2 French provinces were annexed. The capstone on this humiliation was the proclamation of a German empire in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles. The trauma of this defeat was something the French could not get over, and the chief goal of their military strategy in the subsequent years was rearmament and the reconquest of the lost provinces. To that end, the French heavily fortified their border with Germany, the blue line where the 2 countries meet in this map. The Germans, of course, knew all of this, and so their war plan, should the event arise, called for an invasion of France through lightly defended Belgium, capturing Paris and taking the French forces from the rear. Liege was the first obstacle of the German invasion. Sitting atop high ground overlooking the Meuse River, Liege was ringed by over a dozen steel and concrete forts. Fort de l'Enceinte was one of these. It contained a garrison of over 300 men and steel gunnery turrets that could be raised and lowered to fire on the enemy. It was a concrete fortress with modern amenities like plumbing, electricity, and a ventilation system. Unfortunately, the Germans reckoned with these forts when they created their war plans. They designed the most massive cannons on Earth to specifically break these forts, and they succeeded in spectacular fashion. This short clip gives you a very small glimpse of what it would have been like inside the forts when they were under attack in August 1914. I have to give credit to the Belgian government for syncing the light system and the speakers to create this impression, but the reality must have been far worse. Imagine projectiles weighing over a ton each, filled with explosives on a delayed fuse, boring into the stone over your head, shaking the ground and the walls, sending stone dust into your mouth. One of the shells that struck Fort de l'Enceinte ignited its magazine and the entire domed structure exploded, leaving this massive crater behind. Over 200 Belgian soldiers were caught in the rubble. Their bones lie there still. You can get a sense of the power of the German artillery when you look at the massive chunks of stone and steel scattered about the ruins of the fort, like toys strewn on a carpet. The rear of Fort de l'Enceinte serves as a military cemetery for bodies that the Belgians managed to recover. Another common misconception about the Great War is that it was entirely fought in the trenches. Neither side wanted to fight in trenches. Their very existence was proof that both sides' plans had failed. The German invasion that began at Liege swept into France but was stopped decisively east of Paris. The Germans withdrew to high ground and dug in. The Allies counterattacked but couldn't dislodge them. Both sides spent the next month lurching back to the north trying to get around one another. Ypres represented the last gap in the line. Into that gap, the British poured their regular army and the Germans a far larger but less experienced force of volunteers. The two sides mauled one another, and when it was over, the stalemate was complete. Ypres became the site of some of the fiercest fighting on the Western Front for the next 4 years. This is the Menin Gate, the bridge where the eastern road out of Ypres crosses the canal surrounding the city. These stone lions are originals and greeted thousands of Allied soldiers on their way out to the fighting around the city. The town of Zonnebeck lies a few miles east of Ypres. For much of the war, Zonnebeck was held by the Germans, but in 1917, at great cost, the Allies managed to clear the Germans from this position as part of the Passchendaele campaign. The Allied engineers quickly set to work digging fortifications in hopes that they could hold this ground. One such structure was discovered beneath the foundation of this church. It is a dugout, a kind of underground barracks. It was completely flooded by groundwater when they found it, but in 1917 the local government decided to pump out the water and allow 50,000 visitors to tour the site in honor of the anniversary of Passchendaele before they flooded it once more, sealing it off forever. I was fortunate enough to descend into this underground world. Would you like me to go ahead of you? I had a basement with a very high water table as a kid. It smelled just like this. Wow. Look at the steel, how much rust, yeah. That's why they have to flood it again, too, the steel. Yeah, imagine that. When they had to pump it out, it was all water. I wonder